6 goals from a 39-year-old. A scoring record wiped out by Mbappé in a single night. A goalkeeper older than some managers making Spain look ordinary. And a teenager doing something in the knockouts that only Pelé had done before him. That's not a season. That's 3 weeks at this World Cup. The group stage is done. The knockouts are here, and the race to be the best player of this tournament has already gotten out of hand. Superstars are delivering, and unknowns are becoming household names overnight. And the number 1 spot came down to 2 legends going goal for goal. I already know half of you are going to disagree with the call. Quick thing before we start. This ranking is not about reputation. It's about what has actually happened on the pitch at this World Cup. The goals, the moments, the players who grab games by the throat. And some of these calls were brutal. One player with 4 goals at this tournament didn't even make the cut. Quick thing before we start. This ranking is not about reputation. It's about what has actually happened on the pitch at this World Cup. The goals, the moments, the players who grab games by the throat. And some of these calls were brutal. One player with 4 goals at this tournament didn't even make the cut. So if you disagree, good. That's what the comments are for. We start at number 10, and it's a name some of you expected much higher. Jude Bellingham. Be honest, before this tournament, you had questions. He'd missed most of 2026 with a hamstring injury, and the whispers had started the way they always do in England. 3 group games later, the whispers are gone. Bellingham scored against Croatia, scored again against Panama, and did it with that trademark arrogance, chest out, arms wide, the face of a man who never doubted himself even when everyone else did. The goals are only half of it. He arrives in the box at the perfect moment, wins duels he has no business winning, and drags England forward whenever they get stuck. And England always gets stuck. That's not a stat. That's a mentality. So why only 10th? Because the 9 names ahead of him have simply done more, starting with a man who waited 4 decades for his moment. Number 9, Vinícius. Yes, I'm putting a 40-year-old goalkeeper from Cape Verde ahead of some of the biggest names in world football. Watch the Spain game and tell me I'm wrong. Cape Verde, the smallest nation ever to qualify for a World Cup, faced one of the tournament favorites, and their keeper produced one of the great individual performances this competition has seen. 7 saves. Man of the match. Spain's attackers kept seeing the same 40-year-old getting bigger with every save. And it wasn't a one-off. Vinícius carried that form all the way into the knockout rounds, a sentence that would have sounded like a joke a year ago. Some players spend a whole tournament chasing one perfect night. Vinícius already has his. The next player waited his whole career for this tournament too, except his entire country waited with him. At number 8, the captain of the host nation, Christian Pulisic. For years, American soccer has been about potential, about someday. Well, someday is happening right now, on home soil, and Pulisic is making it happen. It started against Paraguay, where he tore the left side apart and set up a goal and assist that quietly gave him more World Cup assists than Cristiano Ronaldo managed in 6 tournaments. Sit with that for a second. Then came the cruel part, a calf injury and a nation holding its breath. But he came back to start the knockout match against Bosnia and Herzegovina and led the USA to a 2-0 win, their first World Cup knockout victory in 24 years. Pulisic is playing for the right to be called the greatest American player ever, in front of a country that spent a decade doubting him. So far, the pressure is losing. And the next player knows all about fighting his own body at this World Cup. Number 7, and this is where the arguments really start. Lamine Yamal, 18 years old, the most hyped young player on the planet, fighting his own body as much as any defender. A hamstring problem limited him to 19 minutes in Spain's opener, instead of easing in quietly. In his first World Cup start against Saudi Arabia, he needed 10 minutes to score, ghosting in at the back post to become one of the youngest scorers in the competition's history. Since then, you can see it building. The touches getting braver, defenders backing off a little more each game. Spain cruising through unbeaten while he grows into the tournament at the worst possible time for everyone else. That's the terrifying part. Yamal at 70% has still been one of the most dangerous players here. So why 7th? Minutes. The players above him have carried teams for a month. He hasn't had the chance yet. Note the word yet. Now, from the teenager to a man playing his last World Cup and refusing to let it end. Number 6. Harry Kane. 5 goals, and somehow people still aren't talking about him enough. There was nothing boring about Atlanta. England laboring, the game slipping toward the kind of night that launches 1,000 angry podcasts, and Kane dragged them out of it with 2 late goals to seal their place in the last 16. That's what he does. But there's an edge this time. Kane is 32, and this is realistically his last shot at the one thing missing from his career, a trophy that matters, with the armband on. England have flaws, England always have flaws, but as long as their captain keeps producing nights like Atlanta, nobody wants to see them in the bracket. But as clinical as Kane has been finishing goals, the next man has been creating them at a rate football hasn't seen in over half a century. Number 5. Michael Olise. If you've only watched the highlights, you've missed the best part of France's tournament. 5 assists. 5 the most of any player here, and just 1 behind the single tournament record Pelé, set in 1970. Nobody has created more chances, nobody has been involved in more attacking moves, and nobody looks like he's having more fun doing it. He was man of the match on his World Cup debut against Senegal, where Deschamps moved him into the middle and Olise answered by splitting the defense with the pass that released Mbappe for the opener. Then came Sweden in the round of 32, a nutmeg into an assist for Barcola, a perfectly weighted ball for Mbappe's goal, and an overhead kick that smacked the post just to remind everyone he could do that too. Mbappe gets the headlines. Olise builds them. Every French goal seems to trace back to the same quiet magician drifting into space nobody else saw, and there's a reason people have started whispering golden ball. But as good as the conductor has been, the man at number 4 might be the single most electric attacker in this entire tournament. Number 4. Vinícius Júnior. For goals for Brazil, right in the Golden Boot race. And the numbers still don't do him justice because Vinícius isn't a player you measure, he's a player you witness. Every time he picks the ball up on that left wing, the whole stadium leans forward. You can see it in the defenders. The fullback starts backing away before Vini even moves, because whatever he's planned, it won't be enough. He's been Brazil's entire attacking identity. And when it wasn't clicking like the day Morocco ground out that draw, and an 18-year-old named Boadi ran the midfield, Vinícius was still the only player who looked capable of ripping the game open by himself. That's the test of greatness at a World Cup. Not what you do when your team is flying. What you do when they're drowning. Every touch feels dangerous. Now, deep breath. We've reached the top 3 where the tournament stops being a competition and starts being history. Number 3. Erling Haaland. His first World Cup. Let me say that again, the most feared striker of his generation had never played a minute at this tournament until 3 weeks ago. Norway hadn't qualified since 1998, and Haaland spent his career watching from the sofa while people asked if his numbers really counted without the biggest stage. So he arrived with a career's worth of hunger, and it shows. 5 goals in 3 group games. Then, when Ivory Coast made the knockouts ugly and nervous, it was Haaland who settled it with the winner. This isn't a debut. It's a demolition. What makes it scarier is how inevitable it feels. He isn't scoring wonder goals. He's scoring the same goal over and over, the run timed perfectly, the finish taken early, the net rippling before the keeper has set his feet. Defenders know exactly what's coming. It doesn't matter. It stopped feeling like a good tournament and started feeling like a takeover. In almost any other World Cup, this wins the Golden Ball. The problem for Haaland is that this isn't any other World Cup. 2 men are having tournaments that belong in a museum. Number 2, and this is the ranking that's going to fill my comments. Let me just say it. Kylian Mbappe is second. 6 goals in 4 games. A brace against Sweden that turned a knockout tie into a highlight reel. Along the way, he passed Miroslav Klose to become the second greatest goalscorer in World Cup history, while breaking the all-time record for knockout stage goals. He's 27. Try to argue he isn't the best big-game player of his era. You can't. 18 goals in 18 career World Cup matches a strike rate only the immortals have touched. And he looks better than ever. Faster than the 2018 kid, colder than the 2022 monster who scored a hat trick in a final and still went home empty-handed. That final is the fuel. Mbappe plays every match like a man collecting a debt the game owes him. France looked terrifying. Dembélé has 4 goals himself and didn't even make this list, which tells you everything. So how does all of that only get you second place? There's exactly one answer to that question, and you already know his name. Number 1. Lionel Messi. 39 years old. 6 goals, all in the group stage, something no one had done since 1994. The highest-rated player at the entire tournament. And with his first goal this summer, he became the only man ever to score at 7 different World Cups. 7. There are internationals at this tournament born after Messi's first World Cup goal. This was supposed to be the farewell tour. Argentina came in as champions, and everyone assumed he'd be a passenger on his own goodbye. Instead, he's dragging the tournament around by the collar. Every Argentina match follows the same script. The game tightens, the stadium gets nervous, and then Messi does something that makes 70,000 people take out their phones. He even came off the bench to score, extending his all-time World Cup record to 19 goals like it was a training drill. Here's why he edges Mbappe, and it's simple. Mbappe has been devastating. Messi has been impossible. One is a superstar at his peak, doing superstar things. The other is rewriting the limits of the sport in real time, while leading the defending champions with a perfect record. If Mbappe outguns him in the knockouts, this order flips, and I'll make that video happily. But right now, the best player at this World Cup is a 39-year-old who refuses to let go of the game he spent 2 decades defining. And there's something perfect about that. So that's the list, but the ink isn't dry on any of it. The round of 16 starts now, and one huge night can tear this whole ranking apart. Maybe Yamal goes supernova. Maybe Haaland drags Norway somewhere unthinkable. Maybe Mbappe and Messi settle it face-to-face, and none of us are ready for that. Drop your top 10 in the comments. Tell me who I disrespected, and give me your number 1, because this World Cup isn't done creating legends. Something tells me it's just getting started.